He's an interesting guy. Yeah, he was really good, wasn't he, as Two-Face? Yeah, they didn't do any Two-Faces for a long time. That was a long time ago. That was a very interesting psychodrama, wasn't it, about that character? It was very psychological, and Batman struggling to help him, a villain that he wanted to help so much. That was very interesting.
It's the same with Mr. Freeze as well.
Well, it's one of my favorites, though, also, is the movie Sub-Zero. I don't know if you remember, there's an opening sequence where they're shooting up under the ice at the polar bear running on the ice, and all you see are the paw prints of the polar bears running across the top of the ice, and you don't quite understand what you're looking at, and then you realize you're under the ice cap. It's visually so beautiful. The artwork in Sub-Zero, I think, is spectacular.
I wanted to get your thoughts on The Dark Knight. Came out a few months ago. One of the reasons that was so big was obviously Heath Ledger had died before that.
Yeah.
I wanted to get your thoughts on that film. I wanted to get your thoughts on the way Christian Bale had that really low, growly voice he did for it. A lot of people thought that was really over the top, and myself included, by the way.
A lot of people thought he was trying to imitate me, which sounded so weird.
Yeah. What did you think of the film?
I thought that the performance of the Joker was just phenomenal.
It really is, isn't it? It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal performance. And for me, the movie was about that. That was a really great performance. He really transformed himself for that role. But the whole movie actually was about that for me. Heath Ledger that was the performance. It kind of overshadowed even the special effects and everything. It was just a brilliant performance.
I'd say the other actors as well, because they had Morgan Freeman, Michael Caine, and I mean, apart from Christian Bale's really low, growly voice, he wasn't a bad Bruce Wayne, but as Batman, it was, he completely changed it from Batman Begins, where he's actually really good at it, and then he goes into Dark Knight, and it's just way over the top.
Yeah, I loved him in Batman Begins. I thought that was great. The Heath Ledger performance really ran away with that movie. It was phenomenal.
What about your favorite actor to don the cape, live action-wise?
Well, I think actually Christian Bale in the original movie that he did was phenomenal. I just didn't like him in the second movie with Heath Ledger, but in the original movie he was fantastic. I love the fact that they've had different actors do it in each of the movies rather than giving the franchise to one person. Michael Keaton was terrific. He found a lot of the humor in Bruce Wayne that I liked. That's what I did in the early episodes. And he went for that, and I think that's really appropriate because it balances the darkness of Batman, and it gives it some fun. So I liked the fact that he played with that a lot.
Gotham Knight, the DVD movie, was extremely different compared to Batman animation, and it created a new look and a feel to the animated franchise. With all the updates, how different was it working on Batman at that time, and were you happy with the final project?
Yeah, I thought it was beautifully done. The thing about the evolution of the process is that it's technically gotten more and more sophisticated. So something like Gotham Knights is so beautifully done, but it couldn't have been done years ago. So a lot of that is just the evolution of the technique that they can come up with these things.
And apart from working on Batman, what other projects have you worked on that you've had fun with? I know you did Max Payne 2 as well.
Yeah.
Which, what other projects have you done that you've really liked apart from Batman?
Oh, boy. I think you mentioned that Max Payne was a lot of fun. You mean for animation?
Oh, no, anything really. I mean, just anything that you've done that you've really liked apart from Batman.
Well, that would go back to a lot of my stage work. I did the last play Arthur Miller did in New York. I did with him before he died, called The Last Yankee. It was such an honor to work with him, and I loved doing that play. And on Broadway, I did a play called Eastern Standard. It was a Richard Greenberg's first play. But that was a long time ago. I was very proud of that performance. I've been really lucky. I've done a number of things that I've been really proud of. Dean Koontz wrote a movie, one of his books. The first movie version of a Dean Koontz novel was something called Face of Fear that I did with Pam Dauber. And it was really challenging, almost 2 months of just night shoots, something like 6 weeks of just all night shoots, all shot out of sequence. I was playing a serial killer. that had to be, that was very difficult to shoot. I was really happy with the way that came out. So I've been lucky. I've done a lot of things that I'm pleased with.
Now, recently, I mean, especially in these times, a lot of animation has now become, it's sort of changed from the sort of late 80s to early 90s, because Batman was one of those cartoons that, you know, was kid-friendly, but also was about storylines and was about, you know, emotional attachments to characters. Now, a lot of it now is kind of like South Park, Family Guy. What do you think of the state of animation these days, being more adult and less child-friendly compared to the early 90s?
I think, you know, it's fun as an adult. The storylines are fun. The irreverence is fun. But I have to say, the artwork, I really miss the money that they spent on the artwork before.
It's a lot lazier now, isn't it?
I think it's an easier way to get off. It's more about the stories now and about they're more sophisticated, the stories. They're more adult-oriented and they're funnier. South Park is very funny, and that's not a kid's show. Family Guy, these aren't kid shows. These are adult shows, but they just don't spend the money on the artwork that they used to, and I miss that. It's a lot cheaper for them to do this way, but you know, some of that artwork is just beautiful. The Batman artwork was really, I think, unparalleled.
Oh yeah. What's next for Kevin Conroy? Now, I think you've done some voice acting for that new game that they're bringing out, which is like meant to celebrate the anniversary of the Batman franchise.
It's called Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, that's it. So have you done all the voice acting for that?
Yeah, that's done, and that's coming out soon, I think. It's very, very interesting. It's computer generated, so it's a very different look, very different look.
You got anything else lined up?
I'm taking time off right now, and I'm working in the garden even as I speak. Literally.
I wanted to ask you, I heard the story that you told on the Gotham Knight DVD commentary, which was sort of about 9/11, and it was going back to that dialogue with I Am Vengeance, and it was about the cut. Can you tell that story for us?
I can tell the story. The language is a little salty. Do you want me to edit the language?
No, go on. No, not at all. We're on Sense. Yeah, of course.
Can I use foul language? Because it was, you know, I was working with cops and firemen and stuff, and they don't tend to clean up their language.
No, it's cool. Tell it.
You sure?
Uh-huh.
Well, I live in New York, and the city was so shocked by the attack, and everyone was trying to figure out. The wonderful thing about New Yorkers is there's a real sense of community there, and everyone always pitches in. And people from out of town, I think, are always surprised to find out how strong a sense of community there is in New York. So when the attack happened, everyone was trying to figure out what they could do, and they were overwhelmed with volunteers. And I called the volunteer line, and they said, well, we have all the tunnelers and we have all the diggers we need, and we said, well, we really need our restaurant workers to feed everyone. We've set up a restaurant down near Ground Zero. Do you have any restaurant experience? And I said, well, I'm an actor. Of course I have restaurant experience. What do you need? I can serve, I can cook, I can clean. They said, you can cook? I said, yeah, I used to run a kitchen for a while in a volunteer organization. They said, can you come down tonight? We need a night shift cook. I said, yeah, I can be there right now. So I went downtown, and the place smelled of sulfur, and it was very depressing. They had these huge work lights set up all over south of Canal Street, and it was just a huge work zone, and they had taken over this large family restaurant that was in the neighborhood, and they'd converted it into a canteen for all of the workers, and they'd bring them in shifts. And all the restaurants in town were sending down truckloads of food for us to cook. And it was an operation that went 24/7. So I started the night shift this one night. So it was a very depressing place to be. As you can imagine, there wasn't a lot of talking going on. There wasn't a lot of laughing going on. It was just kind of a somber, gray shuffling of people in and out of there every night. And people were exhausted, and people were in shock. And in the middle of one night, like 3 a.m, I was working at the oven, and this guy who was working with me regularly said, Kevin, I'm an architect. My day job is I'm an architect. What's your day job? And I said, well, I'm an actor. He said, yeah, but do you do some special kind of acting? He said, I thought I recognized your name. I said, well, I mostly work in animation. And he said, oh, my God, I knew it. You're Batman.